friends. Would you like to hear a little story before we begin? Well, I'm going to tell it anyway, even if you don't want to hear it. It's a good one. A couple weeks ago, and I want everybody to kind of see if they've had experiences like this lately. But a couple of weeks ago, I had to take my mom somewhere, and my mom has a hard time walking. So I'd parked the car, taken my mom up to where she needed to be, and there was a bit of an incline in this sort of driveway area. So I had pulled the car around to be closer, and I parked. I tried to park, but it was a Thursday, and where I live on a Thursday is trash day. So all the big trash trucks are out and about, and when I was parking, trash truck kind of came in front of me and just took up a little too much space, right? So I was sort of backed up further than I had wanted to, but I was still okay. It was just a little bit tight. I get out and I notice, I'm pretty close to the car behind me, but I'm not really parking. I'm just going to go and get my mom. She was maybe 50 yards away. I even had the blinkers on my car. I wasn't staying, right? So I go and get my mom. She has a walker, and I'm helping her down this little hill. I don't go inside the building at all. I'm literally parked there for not even 1 minute. And by the time I turn around to help my mom down this hill, there is a woman who is taking pictures of my car, taking pictures of my license plate, and I can tell immediately she is in a mood. So I just kind of yell a bit and I said, sorry, I'm moving. I know I got a little too close here. That trash truck kind of backed me in, but we'll get out of your hair in just a minute. She did not accept that as a valid excuse, and she absolutely loses her mind. Absolutely turns into like a whirling dervish of fury. And she starts threatening me. I'm going to call the police. Look what you've done. Mind you, my car was close, but there's no contact that was made. We were not touching. And I said, well, ma'am, there's no need for that. Nothing happened. There's no damage. There's literally about a foot. And mind you, I'll give you that. It's close. And I apologize, but I'm leaving. It didn't end there. She couldn't let it go. She was so enraged that all I could do was sort of look at her. And, my initial reaction, as I think a lot of people would react, is to kind of match that and defend yourself, right? And sort of try to call out the absurdity of this level of anger, that the punishment did not fit the crime whatsoever. But I've done the work. I've done the work enough on myself to know that matching that kind of energy is not going to behoove anybody, and I remained incredibly calm, almost like, that Michael Corleone calm in The Godfather, where he looks at his brother Fredo and he silently, very, very quietly says, "Fredo, you've broken my heart." And oh God, it's the end for Fredo, but Michael didn't need to raise his voice. It was just super quiet, and that was where the power was. That's sort of what I pulled, right? Very quiet, very calm and cool and collected. And it made her even more mad because she wasn't getting the reaction that she really wanted from me. It was quite an interesting experience. And needless to say, when you are not seen, when you are not understood, and that's actually what I told her when I left. I said, I'm really sorry that whatever has gotten to you to this point of fury in your day-to-day has been so bad that this minor nothing of a situation set you off like this. I'm sorry that whatever happened to you got you to this place. And I said, I wish I could actually give you a hug, but I know that's going to make things worse, so I'm just going to wish you well, and you have a nice day. And she, at that point, was in tears, right? In tears. So whatever was going on, it was not about the car. And, when you are not seen, when you are not understood, when there is too much pressure, you're going to boil over. You and anyone will lash out. And lashing out is rarely because of one thing that put you over the edge. It's a million things. The person in front of you, when that limit has been reached, is just that unfortunate soul who is in your path of fury at the moment. That lashing out stems from a lack of power, a lack of control. and a lack of authority over your own life, even subconsciously. And then when you give that anger to somebody else, now that person too is walking around because they've just been hit with a surprise attack and they're going to be on edge, expecting the worst from any other random person walking down the street. And so the tone has been set, and so it goes, right? This is what we call that collective untethered anger. Everybody can find something to be upset about these days, or really, really worried about, or super anxious about. Everything is so loud these days, so intense, that Yoshie and I decided to make this series for March all about the overstimulated brain and why everything feels like an emergency today. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Raw Onion podcast. I am your host, Stephanie Ohanessian, and behind the scenes, our technical magician and my incredible colleague, Yoshie Barnett, Crossroads coach. We are welcoming you today. And, we're going to bring this around. It's a question that I have been hearing a lot lately from people. Why does everything feel so loud? Why is everything so loud? It's not just busy. It's not just stress. It's urgent. Our reactions are incredibly abrupt now. Has anybody else noticed that within you or other people? It's relentless. It's like something is always about to happen. We're not at peace right now. The news feels heavier. Social media feels sharper. Even ordinary conversation feels charged. You don't really know how far you can get a conversation in with people, right? Maybe even a little bit of suspicion, like whose quote-unquote side are you really on? There's too much of that charged, weird energy out there. And today I want to offer a simple but profound idea. And it's the truth. Your brain was not built for 24/7 global threat exposure. Our brains were not built for the society that we are currently living in now. If everything feels like an emergency, it's not because you're weak. It's because your nervous system is overloaded. Completely and utterly overloaded. And information is not the same as agency. Being a sponge to bad news, bad vibes, if you feel the energy is off, bad company. It's not a mark of taking on social responsibility to see how much you can handle. It's a sign you no longer can see the difference between the good and the bad. It's all kind of crumpled up into one big weird ball of madness. And you've rolled your life up into one ball without, here we go, discernment. So how do we live consciously and aware? How do we live in discernment in the age of chaos? This is what this series is all about, folks. And nobody can tell me, nobody can tell Yoshie that you haven't felt it yourself. We must hone the art of discernment now more than ever. And that filter you must master in today's world of constant chaos. So let's start here. For most of human history, threats were immediate and local, right? We know this. A predator, a storm coming, a conflict within your village. Let's take it back a few generations or more, right? And your nervous system would activate. Sure, of course it has to. You would fight, you would flee, or you would solve the problem, and then you would recover. So in psychology, we would really call this loop activation, action, and resolution. The loop completed itself. The stress cycle completed. And then you would go back to homeostasis. You would rest. But today, we do not have that luxury. We consume war in high definition, political outrage in real time, economic fear cycle, global tragedy on repeat. And please don't forget the emotion that is not talked about enough these days. The immense feeling of betrayal. Nobody is talking about this sense of betrayal. As the veil lifts and we see or hear things that are frankly too appalling to even put into words, and I'm not even going to mention the name, but I think everybody will know what I'm talking about, done by those who we have entrusted as leaders, as policymakers, as keepers of safety for our children, for our families, as we try to abide by these laws. We've been duped. And we come to understand that life has been, needless to say, somewhat of a lie. Betrayal, grief, and disgust also outline the nervous system's ability to regulate. So please do not forget that what we are seeing, the shifts that we are seeing in the world today, it is not just about anger and unjust behavior. It's about the ultimate betrayal. Go back and think if your spouse has ever been dishonest to you, or if your friends or family has lied, or anybody, or if you figured out that somebody has not been truthful to you, but they've been the ones that have been telling you what to do and how to live. And then all of a sudden, boom, whoa, wait a minute. Who are you? You're no authority over me now. Now times that by 1 million, times that by 8 billion people on the planet. That's some heavy collective energy, right? And what is betrayal as understood within the nervous system? Well, let's talk about it. Betrayal is the shock to the nervous system that occurs when a source of perceived safety becomes a source of threat. Let me say that again. Betrayal is the shock to the nervous system that occurs when a source of perceived safety becomes a source of threat. It is not just disappointment. It is not just disagreement. Betrayal is the collapse of a trusted prediction. And what do we know about our good old brains? Brains are a prediction machine. So what is betrayal in the brain? At a neurological level, betrayal is a violation of expected safety. When you trust someone, when you trust a system, a partner, a parent, a leader, an institution, your brain encodes them as part of your safety map. Specifically, now we're going to get nerdy, but it's important. Visualize whatever part of your brain is right there by your forehead or right in back of your forehead. The prefrontal cortex creates models of who is safe. The hippocampus, part of your brain that stores relational memory. Your amygdala scans for threat. Your anterior cingulate cortex, the ACC, tracks social pain and relational disruption. So, again, at a neurological level, betrayal is the violation of expected safety, and all of these parts of the brain are firing when you understand that you've been duped. When you understand that what's going on in the world around you is too much and unequivocally wrong. So when betrayal happens, 3 things occur really, really fast. A prediction error spikes, right? Wait a minute. This goes against completely what I know as true. The brain relies on predictive coding. It constantly anticipates what will happen next. And so when somebody we trust acts in a way that contradicts our model of them, the brain experiences a massive prediction error. Dopamine spikes. It's almost this alarm bell, like, whoa, I can't trust anything anymore. It's not as pleasure. Dopamine doesn't spike here as pleasure, guys. But as surprise, as shock, the system flags something went wrong. It destabilizes your internal sense of coherence. And coherence is what we need in today's wild world of wickedness. Coherence is what is needed to stop the collective cycle and spiraling. Think back to the story I shared at the top of this episode, right? A coherent brain will not sponge up another person's anger. It will process it and move on, and that's what I tried to do in that situation. A coherent brain knows what is or is not in its control and operates accordingly. And here's the critical piece. Your brain does not distinguish very well between a lion in front of you and a crisis on your screen. The amygdala, and again, we know this, that's your threat detection center, is responding to emotional insensitivity and novelty. Modern media is engineered for both. Don't forget, every time you log on, every time you read, even if it's a trusted source of yours, put that trust, that word in quotes these days. You have to be able to regulate yourself because all of what you see is designed so geniusly to get you to react. This is the goal. So when you open your phone in the morning and see outrage, disaster, alarm, your nervous system reacts as if something is in your immediate environment that requires attention. Now let's layer in the neuroscience, right? Hear me out. Negativity bias. Your brain is wired to prioritize negative information over neural or positive information. Why? Well, it's pretty easy to say why. Historically, missing danger was more costly than missing good news, right? If you miss danger, you die. So your intention and attention is automatically drawn to conflict, threat, moral outrage, breaking news. They know what they're doing. They know how our brains are designed. Now it's time that you know how your brain is designed so you can control it instead of having everything else around you control it. The wiring also makes you become heightened in your own environment. Is my kid really acting up, or am I now just hyper alert because I've been on hypervigilant mode because I know that everything around me is pretty chaotic? Or is my partner really doing wrong? Or am I just looking to pick a fight so I can win since I feel powerless in all other areas of my life and the world around me is going wild? Let me just give myself some dopamine real quick while I can, even if it's not accurate or productive or even true. It isn't a flaw, it's a survival wiring. And you need to understand that when you're in the moment so you can come back to coherence. And in a media ecosystem that amplifies threat signals constantly, the wiring gets exploited. And it's attentional hijacking. Every notification, every breaking headline, every algorithmically optimized post, your attention system is being interrupted. Ever not know how your stomach drops when your phone pings? You get, oh boy, oh no, who is that? What do they want from me? Or when you get a new email in your inbox? I know that I really was messed up with that. Just this little, oh no, somebody's going to need something from me now, and I don't have anything to give. Ping! Now what? Ping! Oh no, now what, right? That means your system is overloaded. It means you have to walk away and you have to regulate yourself. And at this point, there's a million ways to do that, right? But you've got to know when to do it. And our attention switching has a measurable cognitive cost. When you rapidly switch between stimuli, your brain burns more energy. Again, going back to that prefrontal cortex, that's where your decision-making neurons live. The part responsible for reasoning, judgment. It becomes less efficient because you're feeling foggier, you're just overloaded, nothing's really making sense, you're more reactive, you're not clear. Not because you lack discipline, but because your brain is fragmented, it doesn't know what's going on anymore. You're getting hit by a million different stimuli, and the truth is there's very little you can do much about with the majority of the stuff that you're even listening to. And again, I'm not saying dig your head in the sand like an ostrich and pretend that everything is beautiful out there. No. But again, going back to what we said before, right? Information is not the same as agency. Just because you're hearing more doesn't mean that you're able or your capacity is now growing for you to do more with whatever might be happening that's outside of your control. The real power is saying, wait a minute, how can I really affect my community, my home, my neighbors, myself? What can I do so that I am coherent within my own small orbit? Because what do we know? Energy passes on. Go back to the story at the beginning, right? That woman was very, very dysregulated. She was having a day. She was looking for a fight. That could have easily escalated into something really, really bad. And I had to make a conscious decision to walk away. Because otherwise, I'm going to get elevated. Who knows how many other people would have gotten involved. And then we've got a dozen people that are unregulated, that are mad, that are upset. We don't need that. But agency within the span of what you can control turns down the volume. And we are capable of that. We cannot stop the wars that are happening. We cannot stop all of it single-handedly. I mean, I think collectively, I sure hope we do end up doing something, and very rapidly. That's a conversation for another day, but we're talking about the here and now. We're talking about how to respond in the moment. so that you don't overstimulate, you don't spiral. Discernment in the age of chaos. This is the ultimate in discernment. So instead of full activation and release, if you're going to lean into trying to overstimulate yourself, you're always living in partial activation. You're not really panicking. You're not calm. You're just simmering. You're marinating, and your spidey senses are up, waiting, just waiting. And what does that do if we're just always somewhat on high alert? We're waiting for the next thing to happen, and we're bracing ourselves. Our adrenaline is always activated. Our cortisol is always activated. You're going to find yourself putting on a few pounds because your system is never calming down. And the cortisol doesn't have a way to release itself. It's not really doing anything productive like, let's say, thousands of years ago when you were fighting that lion. It keeps simmering in your body. It goes around and around. We're not designed that way, folks. We have to live how we're designed to be the most effective versions of ourselves. We have to honor how we were designed. And if you're always living in spidey senses up, you're irritable, you're fatigued, you're shortened with your patience, and frankly, you're low-grade hopeless. And what's life without a little hope? There's always hope. We know that. There's always hope. And by discernment, we continue to live in that element of hope because we're activating goodness. We're activating doing good. We're activating regulation. So if everything feels urgent, it may not be because everything is urgent. It may be because your nervous system is being fed urgency constantly. Do the digital detoxing. Manage your emails, manage your home, manage yourself with discernment. What is really important now? Discernment begins when you ask, is this mine to act on? Or am I consuming it as survival? Information is not the same as agency. And I will leave you with this, my friends. What are you consuming that your nervous system experiences as a threat? I'm not going to offer any hacks today. Those will come next week. I'm offering and trying to elicit thought-provoking questions here, because if you answer these questions, I guarantee you the answers will surprise you. What are you consuming that your nervous system experiences as threat? And what would you change if clarity, not urgency, guided your attention? Think about that. What would change automatically if you lived in clarity, not urgency? And if the clarity guided your attention rather than that constant spidey sense, active, urgent, I have to be prepared for the worst? What if you realized, nope, I'm going to live in clarity this week? Okay? So next week, we're going to talk about emotional contagion and how much of what you're feeling might not even be yours. There's a lot to unpack here, but it is vital. It is vital. Discernment in the age of chaos. None of us are immune to this at this time in history. But we are all capable of regulating it and really giving grace to that beautiful filtration system that we were born with. Let's start to use it, okay? Until then, protect your attention, protect your heart. It is your most valuable neurological resource. On behalf of Yoshie and I, we thank you for listening to The Raw Onion. Please subscribe and follow, and we will be back for more next week with this new series of Discernment in the Age of Chaos. And I hope this helped you a little bit today. You are not alone. We are all doing this together. Over and out, Raw Onion. Thank you for listening.